Darwinism is different. It's actually bogus. But there is definitely the reality that people can, they don't just live once. They can have many different lifetimes and gradually go back to Godhead. Or they can keep failing all the time and stay under the grip of material nature. A learned man who gives up the bodily conception of life, both gross and subtle, will, by the enlightenment of spiritual knowledge, become a prominent individual spirit soul, as the Supreme Lord is also. Report by Srila Prabhupada. It is said that man is a rational animal. But from this verse, we can also understand that rationality exists even in animal life. That's a fact. Unless there is rationality, how can an animal maintain its body by working so hard? That the animals are not rational is untrue. Their rationality, however, is not very advanced. In any case, we cannot deny them rationality. The point is that one should use one's reason to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for that is the perfection of human life. Well, the question is here, are animals, are they on an equal level with human beings? Obviously not. Do they have some rationality? Yes, they do. That's why Prabhupada says that rationality exists even in animal life. They can be trained to do certain things. There's no doubt about that. But we should not consider them to be on the same level as human beings. But there are human beings who are nonsense people. They're no better than the animals, and maybe even worse. But here it says, rationality exists even in animal life. Unless there is rationality, how can an animal maintain its body by working so hard? That the animals are not rational is untrue. Their rationality, however, is not very advanced. In any case, we cannot deny them rationality. The point is that one should use one's reason to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, that's what the animals cannot do. They can understand a master and follow certain rules that the master gives them, but they don't have the ability to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Only human beings have that ability. Okay, text 1b. So now we finished the basic canto for chapter 29, but there is a little bit more. That's why it's 1b. And it says, if the living entity is developed in Krishna consciousness and is merciful to others, and if his spiritual knowledge of self-realization is perfect, he will immediately attain liberation from the bondage of material existence. Well, there's about 2 or 3 ifs there, and some of them are really big ifs. If the living entity is developed in Krishna consciousness and is merciful to others, and if his spiritual knowledge of self-realization is perfect, he will immediately attain liberation from the bondage of material existence. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, the words Daya Jivesu, meaning mercy to other living entities, indicate that a living entity must be merciful to other living entities if he wishes to make progress in self-realization. Well, that immediately eliminates the butchers and the people that are eating meat. In other words, paying the butchers to slaughter animals so that they can eat them. So that eliminates a lot of people. This means that he must preach this knowledge after perfecting himself in understanding his own position as an eternal servant of Krishna. Preaching this is showing real mercy to living entities. Other types of humanitarian work may be temporarily beneficial for the body, but because a living entity is spiritual, ultimately one can show him real mercy only by revealing knowledge of his spiritual existence. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Jivara Swarupahaya Nityara Krishna Dasu. Every living entity is constitutionally a servant of Krishna. One should know this fact perfectly and should preach it to the mass of people. Every living entity is constitutionally a servant of Krishna. Does every living entity know that they are constitutionally a servant of Krishna? No. But they can learn. If one realizes that he is an eternal servant of Krishna but does not preach it, his realization is imperfect. There you go. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur therefore sings, Dustamana tumi kishera Vaishnava pratistara tare nirjanira gare tava harinama kevala kaitava. My dear mind, what kind of Vaishnava are you? Simply for false prestige and a material reputation, you are chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Wow.
In a solitary
place. In this way, people who do not preach are criticized. There are many Vaishnavas in Vrindavan who do not like preaching. They chiefly try to imitate Haridas Thakur. The actual result of their so-called chanting in secluded place, however, is that they sleep and think of women and money. Prabhupada is a wonderful writer. Similarly, one who simply engages in temple worship but does not see the interests of the mass of people or cannot recognize devotees is called a kanishta adhikari. In other words, a devotee on the lowest level of Krishna consciousness. Okay, now we're on text 2b. To be or not to be? That is the question.
So these are additional verses added later?
Yeah, they're extra verses. Everything happening within time, which consists of past, present, and future, is merely a dream. That is the secret understanding in all Vedic literature. Wow. So what we're doing now, is this a dream only? It may be. But actually not really, because we're talking about Krishna. But if we're just sitting here talking about what the what do you call it? The
stock market.
Yes, the market going up to today or down. That means that we're in a dream world right there. Actually, all of the material existence is only a dream. Thus, there is no question of past, present, or future. Persons who are addicted to karma kanda vichara, which means working for future happiness through fruited activities. Well, that's 98% of the population, are also dreaming. Similarly, past happiness and present happiness are merely dreams. The actual reality is Krishna and service to Krishna, which can save us from the clutches of Maya. For the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 7.14, Mameva ye prapadyante mayamitam tarantite. Those who surrender unto me can easily cross beyond my illusory energy. Wow, there it is. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the fourth canto, 29th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Talks Between Narada and King Parsinabhari. So, this verse, Bhagavad Gita 7.14, is very, very profound. Mam evaye prapadyante mayamitam tarantite. Those who surrender unto me can easily cross beyond my illusory energy. That is our takeaway. We should memorize this and repeat every day. Mam evaye prapadyante mayamitam tarantite. Those who are surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond my illusory energy. Okay, now we're going on to chapter 30, the activities of the Prachetas. Text number 1. Vidura inquired from Maitreya, O Brahmana, you formerly spoke about the sons of Parsinabhari and informed me that they satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead by chanting a song composed by Lord Shiva. What did they achieve in this way? Okay. Well, we have to understand Lord Shiva is a bona fide Vaishnava. Although some people might argue against it, but the reality is he is a devotee. Purport. In the beginning, Maitreya Rishi narrated the activities of the sons of Parsinabhari. These sons went beside a great lake, which was like an ocean. And fortunately, finding Lord Shiva, they learned how to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by chanting the songs composed by Lord Shiva. Well, okay, that finishes the doubts. Lord Shiva is a devotee. Now, their father's attachment for fruitive activities was disapproved by Narada, who therefore kindly instructed Parsinabhari by telling him the allegorical story of Puranjana. Now, Vidura again wanted to hear about Parsinabhari's sons, and he was especially inquisitive to know what they achieved by satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here, the words siddhim approve or achieved perfection are very important. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7.3, Manushyanam sahasresu kaschit janti siddhaye. Out of many, many millions of people, one may be interested in learning how to attain success in spiritual life. The supreme success is mentioned also in Bhagavad Gita 8.15. Mam upetya punarjanma dukalayam asasvatam na punuvanti mahatmana samsidim paramam gata. After attaining me, meaning Krishna, the great souls who are yogis in devotion that implies that there are yogis who are not in devotion also, never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. While the yogis that are not convinced that this temporary world is full of miseries, they remain in the material world. But the yogis who have understood that this temporary world is full of miseries, they have the chance to be liberated and attain the highest perfection of life, which is going back to Godhead. And what is the highest perfection? Okay, that is explained in that verse. The highest perfection is to return home back to Godhead. Yes, so that one will not have to return to this material world and transmigrate from one body to another in the dream of material existence. That is so true. The material existence is like a dream. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending, over and over again, life after life. Therefore, it is an illusory existence, or it's the dream of material existence. By the grace of Lord Shiva, the Prachetas actually attained perfection and returned home back to Godhead. That means Lord Shiva is a pure devotee. He's able to help people go back to Godhead. After enjoying material facilities to the highest extent, Maitreya will now narrate that to Vidura. Now that seems to be a contradiction. How can they enjoy material facilities to the highest extent and still attain perfection and return home back to Godhead? We're going to hear about this now. Text number 2. My dear Barhaspatya, what did the sons of King Barisat, known as the Prachetas, obtain after meeting Lord Shiva, who is very dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the bestower of liberation? So now we know Shiva is the bestower of liberation. Certainly, they were transferred to the spiritual world, but apart from that, what did they obtain within this material world, either in this life or in other lives? Very good questions. Purport: all types of material happiness are obtained in this life or in the next life, or on this planet or on another. All types of material happiness. The living entity wanders within this material universe in so many species of life and so many planetary systems. What's amazing is I can't remember any of that. And I don't think anyone can remember it. Yeah. The distress and happiness obtained during the span of life are called iha. And the distress and happiness obtained in the next life are called paratra. Actually, Lord Mahadeva, Shiva, is one of the great demigods within this material world. Generally, his blessings bestowed on ordinary people mean material happiness. The predominating deity of this material world, Durga, is under the control of Lord Mahadeva, Girisha, or Mahadeva, meaning Shiva. This Lord Mahadeva can offer anyone any kind of material happiness. And now the problem with that is that material happiness is not eternal. So actually, it's not actually a benediction, it's a curse. But most people would consider it to be a great benediction. Generally, people prefer to become devotees of Lord Girisa, meaning Shiva, to obtain material happiness. But the Prachetas met Lord Mahadeva or Shiva by providential arrangement. Okay, let's see what happens. Lord Mahadeva instructed them to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he personally offered a prayer. Well, you see, that proves that Mahadeva or Shiva is a pure devotee of Krishna. As stated in a previous verse, Rudra Gitena, simply by chanting the prayers offered by Lord Shiva to Vishnu, the Prachetas were transferred to the spiritual world. The prayers offered by Lord Shiva to Vishnu, so that those are transcendental prayers that can purify one and make one eligible to go back to the spiritual world. Sometimes devotees desire to enjoy material happiness also. Therefore, by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the devotee is given a chance to enjoy the material world before his final entrance into the spiritual world. Sometimes the devotee is transferred to a heavenly planet, to Janaloka, Maharloka, Tapaloka, Siddhaloka, and so on. However, a pure devotee never aspires for any kind of material happiness. Why not? Because it is basically illusory. It's not eternal. So there's sat and there's asat. Sat is what is eternal, and asat what is temporary. So a genuine devotee will not waste time with what is asat, temporary. He or she will always be concerned with what is eternal. Otherwise, they could stay many lifetimes making somewhat of spiritual advancement, but going very, very slowly back to Godhead. Whereas a devotee who's not interested in any sense gratification can almost immediately go back to the spiritual world. And that's why it says here, the pure devotee is consequently transferred directly to Vaikuntha Loka, which is described here as Param. In this verse, Vidura asked Maitreya, the disciple of Brihaspati, about the different achievements of the Prachetas. So, if one takes the Krishna consciousness completely and is not interested in any form of sense gratification, very quickly such a person can go back to Vaikuntha quickly. On the other hand, if there are devotees who are still attached to enjoying material nature, they can do that and make slow material spiritual advancement and eventually go back to Godhead. That's why it says the pure devotee is consequently transferred directly to Vaikuntha Loka, which is described here as Param. And then, on the other hand, sometimes a devotee is transferred to a heavenly planet, to Janaloka, Maharloka, Tapaloka, Siddhaloka, and so on. However, a pure devotee never aspires for any kind of material happiness. But there are some devotees that do want to experience material happiness, and therefore they make gradual advancement toward the ultimate going back to Godhead. The great sage Maitreya said, this is text 3, the sons of King Parsinabharti, known as the Prachetas, underwent severe austerities. within the seawater to carry out the order of their father. By chanting and repeating the mantras given by Lord Shiva, they were able to satisfy Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. One can offer prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly, but if one repeats the prayers offered by great devotees like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, or if one follows in the footsteps of the great personalities, one can please the Supreme Personality of Godhead very easily. Well, if one can follow in the footsteps of great personalities, who are these great personalities? They are the devotees that are always chanting Hare Krishna mantra. For instance, we sometimes chant this mantra of Brahma Samhita 529. Chintamani Prakarasad Masu Kalpavriksha Vakshavrite Susurabir Abhipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, yielding all desires, in abodes built with spiritual gems and surrounded by millions of purpose trees. He is always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. Because this prayer was offered by Lord Brahma, we follow him by reciting this prayer. Chintamani Prakarasad Masu. That is the easiest way to satisfy the Supreme Personality of God. The pure devotee never attempts to reach the Supreme Lord directly. The most important way to worship the Lord is to go through the disciplic succession of devotees. All right, now that's a very, very major statement. The prayers offered by Lord Shiva to the Supreme Personality of Godhead were thus repeated by the Prachetas, who were thus very successful in pleasing the Supreme Lord. Here, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is described as Puranjana with a small p. According to Madhvacharya, the living entity is called Puranjana. Okay, that's another name of the living entity. That's why it's got a small p. Because he has become an inhabitant of this material world and under the influence of the three modes of material nature, he is forced to live within it. The Supreme Personality of Godhead creates this material world, also known as Pura, and he also enters within it. Andantarasta Paramanu Chantarastam. The Lord enters within the heart of the living entity and within the atom. Therefore, both the living entity and the Lord are called Puranjana. One Puranjana, the living entity, is subordinate to the Supreme Puranjana. Therefore, the duty of the subordinate Puranjana is to satisfy the Supreme Puranjana. That is devotional service. Lord Rudra and Lord Shiva is Lord Rudra or Lord Shiva, that means the same person, is the original Acharya of the Vaishnava Sampradaya called the Rudra Sampradaya. So there are four Vaishnava Sampradayas. One of them is Rudra Sampradaya, Shiva's Sampradaya. Rudra Gitena indicates that under the disciplic succession of Lord Rudra, the Prachetas achieve spiritual success. Okay, so there's not only the Vaishnava Sampradaya, there's also the Rudra Sampradaya, and there's four bona fide Sampradayas. Text 4. At the end of 10,000 years of severe austerities performed by the Prachetas, the Supreme Personality of Godhead to reward their austerity, appeared before them in his very pleasing form. This appealed to the Prachetas and satisfied the labor of their austerities. Now, we can't do this. We can't meditate and do severe austerities for 10,000 years. It's not possible. We can't even live 100 years. How are we going to do it? 10,000 years. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Performing 10,000 years of severe austerities does not seem a happy endeavor. Yet the devotees, the serious students of spiritual life, undergo such austerities to attain the favor of the Supreme Personality of Life. At that time, when the duration of life was very long, people could undergo severe austerities for thousands of years. Okay. It is said that Valmiki, the author of the Ramayana, underwent meditational austerities for 60,000 years. The Supreme Personality Godhead appreciated the austerities undergone by the Prachetas, and he finally appeared before them in a pleasing form. Thus, they all became satisfied and forgot the austerities they underwent. In the material world, if one is successful after hard labor, he is very pleased. Similarly, the devotee forgets all his labors and austerities as soon as he contacts the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although Dhruva Maharaja was only a 5-year-old boy, he underwent severe austerities by eating simply dry foliage, drinking only water, and taking no food. In this way, after 6 months, he was able to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. When he saw the Lord, he forgot all his austerities and said, Swamin Kritarto Ksmi, my dear Lord, I am very pleased. Of course, these austerities were performed in the Satya Yuga. We're not in the Satya Yuga. Dwapara Yuga and Treta Yuga, but not in this age of Kali. In this Kali Yuga, one can attain the same results by simply chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Because the people of this age are fallen, the Lord is kind enough to give them the easiest method. What is that? Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, one can attain the same results. However, as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu points out, we are so unfortunate that we are not even attracted to chanting the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, how many people are actually chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra? Well, let's ask this another question. How many people are there in the material world? A huge number, right?
And right now, it's at least 8 billion plus.
And how many people are chanting Hare Krishna?
Maybe.
Huh?
Maybe a few millions.
Yeah, millions. So there's still a long way to go for humanity or human beings to attain the perfection of spiritual life. That means that we need many, many pure devotees to keep preaching Krishna consciousness, because there are many living entities that are not, many human living entities that are not so interested in Krishna consciousness. That's why as he says here, however, as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu points out, we are so unfortunate that we are not even attracted to chanting the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Lord Chaitanya is is saying clearly that there's still many, many people that are not at all interested in chanting the Maha Mantra. That would give them very quick liberation from the cycle of birth and death. That means that they are their own enemy. One can become its own enemy by refusing to follow the easiest program of, let's say, the easiest program to attain liberation from birth and death, of chanting Hare Krishna and following the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness. So they are their own, what you call enemy, by being so dull and determined to engage in sense gratification. Text 5. Now, every day there are people that wake up and the first thing they do is drink coffee. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. There are other people who will drink coffee, but later on in the day, they also drink liquor. So there's a long way to go. There's so many people that are engaged in unholy activities. So the preaching has to be increased to help them. Text number 5. The personality Godhead appearing on the shoulder of Garuda seemed like a cloud resting on the summit of the mountain known as Meru. The mountain Meru is huge, gigantic. You can't even imagine how big it is. The transcendental body of the personality Godhead was covered by attractive yellow garments, and his neck was decorated with a jewel known as Kaustuba Mani. The bodily effulgence of the Lord dissipated all the darkness of the universe. And the universe is dark. If you go up in a rocket in outer space, it's very dark. Very, very dark. And why is that? Because space is so immense that light does not, you don't see light in outer space. You'll only see it when the light comes in contact with an atmosphere of the earth. Then you can see light. But the outside of the earth or any planet, you will not see light because there's so much expansion of the light in outer space that it's dark. Yeah. So in other words, if there's something that is right next to something else, you can see it. But if there's a huge distance between each point of light, you will not be able to see it. It will just be dark because of a huge difference between the molecules or whatever of light. As stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22.31, Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andakara. Yahan Krishna Tahan Nahi Mayara Adhikara. The Lord is just like the effulgent sun. Consequently, whenever the Supreme Personality of Godhead is present, there cannot be darkness or ignorance. Actually, this dark universe is illuminated by the sun, but the sun and moon simply reflect the bodily effulgence of the Supreme Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 7.8, the Lord says, Prabhasmi Sasisurayo. I am the illuminating energy of both the sun and the moon. The conclusion is that the origin of all life is the bodily effulgence of the Supreme Personality of God. This is also confirmed in Brahma Samhita. Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti. Being illuminated by the bodily effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything is freed from all darkness. Well, if you avoid the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you actually live in darkness or ignorance. Whereas the Lord says, Pravasmi Sasi Suraya, I am the illuminating energy of the bodily effulgence of the Supreme Personality of God. I'm sorry. I am the illuminating energy of both the sun and the moon. The conclusion is that the origin of all life is the bodily effulgence. In other words, the Brahma Jyoti of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in Brahma Samhita. Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti. Being illuminated by the bodily effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything is freed from all darkness. Okay. Text number 6. Are there any questions? Maybe you might want to discuss something, or there's something you don't understand.
Yes, Maharaj. I had a quick one. You mentioned there are like 8 billion. I think someone said, Prabhuji said, like there's 8 billion people, and out of them, maybe like who's chanting the holy name is like a few million. So what does it count? Like I know, like our food trucks, when they give the prasad, they ask the persons to chant, like, but that's like motivational, like they're chanting to get the plate. So who should we count in terms of like their bona fide chanting the holy name? Like,
but even if you chant once the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, even if it's jokingly chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, or out of derisive behavior, this like Hare Krishna, something like that, you still make spiritual advancement because the holy name is absolute.
yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, one more follow-up question on the same subject. Maharaj, say people who know they eat meat, whether we can give a chanting bag and say you chant, is it okay? Because we know that they may be eating, but whether we can tell them, hey, why can't you chant, and give the chanting breeds for them?
Okay, you have to repeat that. I didn't really understand your question.
My question is, I know some people who are our colleagues or friends, but they show some interest. But whether we can give the chanting beat and tell them you chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra if they are willing to do, because I get always doubt, hey, they are eating meat, we should not tell them to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra.
Why not? I used to be meat eater. And when I first, came in contact with devotees, well, wait a minute, I have to tell the truth though. I voluntarily gave up meat eating even before I knew anything about Krishna consciousness. But that was because I thought it was not good for my health. It was not because I wanted to be a devotee. But the meat eaters today, to convince them to give up chanting and to give up meat eating and take up chanting Hare Krishna, it's not so easy to do. They're really like my brothers. They would never give up meat eating. Okay? They would chant a little Hare Krishna, but they would never give up meat eating. Okay? So it's very difficult to convince people in this age to give up meat eating because it's so, widespread, and there's a lot of false narratives like, oh, if you give up eating meat, then you'll get weak. But if you eat meat, you'll be strong. One time there's this Muslim guy who heard that I was like something of a pundit of health, right? So he came and started talking to me. He said his son was always sick, and he heard that I could maybe help him to improve the health of his son. And I said, sure. He said, well, what should I do? I said, well, the first thing is you should stop eating meat. He said, what? I'm never going to stop giving my son meat. I said, if that's what you're going to recommend, then I'm not going to listen to what you say. Because as a Muslim, he was thinking that if you eat meat, then you get strong, right? But actually, you can get even stronger if you are a vegetarian and only eat pure things, not contaminated things. Like, for example, milk is the blood of an animal, is made from the blood of the animal, right? But it's in a form that is pure, right? But it's still made from the blood of the animal. So if someone says, well, no, I want to eat the blood of the animal, but actually, if you drink the milk of the animal, you are drinking the blood of the animal. So, but it's in a form that is beneficial for health when you drink milk. On the other hand, drinking the blood of an animal not only is sinful, but you will also eventually, it's not really good for your health. Temporarily, it might be good for your health, but in the long term, it will not be. Why? Because blood of the animal means that you're committing great sinful activity. And look at it. Look at the meat eaters. They're always engaged in war and fighting, and always having what you would call tragedies taking place. And they don't really understand why that's happening. If you say it's because you're eating meat, they'll just laugh and they'll say, you don't know what you're talking about. You know. Okay. So any other questions? Okay, so our takeaway today is the Lord says, 7th chapter, 8th verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Pravasmi Sasi Suraya. I am the illuminating energy of both the sun and the moon. The conclusion is that the origin of all life is the bodily effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in Brahma Samhita. Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti. Being illuminated by the bodily effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything is freed from all darkness. Well, that also implies that one becomes purified, basking in the light of the Lord. The conclusion is that the origin of all life is the bodily effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in Brahma Samhita, Yasya Prabha Prabhuto Jagananda Koti. Being illuminated by the bodily effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything is freed from all darkness. Well, like just now, this is the early morning, and the sun has risen. So the darkness has been dissipated, it's gone, and we will have at least 12 hours or more of light. It will be actually more because we're in this period of winters, of summer, where there is much more light. In the heavy period of winter, there is much less light. But we're in the summer season where there's at least, what is it? I would say, because the sun will rise earlier and will go away later. So we have at least, I would say, what is it? 15 hours or more of sunlight in summertime. Now there's 24 hours in a day. So it can be even more than 15 hours. It can be up to, in some places, 20 hours of sunlight in the summertime.
Mhm.
Okay, so, and there are some places where the sun never goes down, but that means you're very close to the North Pole. All right, so text number 6, and then we'll stop. The Lord's face was very beautiful, and his head was decorated with a shining helmet and golden ornaments. The helmet was dazzling and was very beautifully situated on his head. The Lord had 8 arms, which each held a particular weapon. The Lord was surrounded by demigods, great sages, and other associates. These were all engaged in his service. Garuda, the carrier of the Lord, glorified the Lord with Vedic hymns by flapping his wings. Garuda appeared to be an inhabitant of the planet known as Kinara Loka. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Generally, the Vishnu form is manifested with 4 hands, holding 4 objects: conch shell, disc, club, and lotus flower. However, here Lord Vishnu is described as possessing 8 arms with 8 kinds of weapons. According to Viraraghava Acharya, the conch shell and lotus flower are also accepted as weapons. Since the Lord is the supreme controller, whatever is in his hand can be considered a weapon. 4 hands hold 4 kinds of weapons, and the extra 4 hands hold an arrow, bow, trident, and snake, which are also weapons in a sense. Sri Viraraga Acharya describes the 8 weapons as Sankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma, Snarga, Sara, etc. A king is always accompanied by his ministers, secretaries, and commanders. And Lord Vishnu is also accompanied by his followers, the demigods, great sages, saintly persons, and so on. He is never alone. Consequently, there's no question of the Lord's being impersonal. He is always himself, the supreme personality of Godhead, and his associates are also persons. From the description given in this verse, Garuda appears to belong to the Kinara planet. The inhabitants of the Kinara planet have the same features as Garuda. In other words, they look like birds. Their bodily features are like those of a human being, but they have wings. Ha! How would you like that? To see someone that has a face like a human being and the body of a bird. That'd be amazing. The word Gita Kirti indicates that the inhabitants of Kinara Loka are very expert in singing the glories of the Lord. In Brahma Samhita it is said, Jagananda Koti Kotish Vasesha Vasudadi Vibhuti Binam. In each and every universe, there are different types of planets, and each planet has distinctive features. On the strength of this verse, we can understand that that in Kinara Loka, the inhabitants can fly with their wings. There is also a planet known as Siddhaloka, where the inhabitants can fly even without wings. Wow. Thus, each and every planet has some distinctive faculty. That is the beauty of the varied creation of the Supreme Personality of God. Wow, so there's no boredom in the spiritual world. There's so many amazing things that have not been discovered yet, but they are actually in the spiritual world, or even in the world of the Siddhaloka express and other elevated places in the universe. So there's so much variety in the material universe, so much variety, and that's good and bad. It's good because one may take advantage of all that variety to develop Krishna consciousness and go back to Godhead, and it's bad because one may be so enamored by all that variety that they don't want to go back to Godhead. They're satisfied in the material world. Okay, so I think we're finished. I'll just read one more verse. Okay. Around the neck of the personality of Godhead hung a flower garment that reached to his knees. Wow, that's a big one. His 8 stout and elongated arms were decorated with that garment, which challenged the beauty of the goddess of fortune. With a merciful glance and a voice like thunder, the Lord addressed the sons of King Parsinabar, who were very much surrendered unto him. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word Adya in this verse is very significant. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the origin even of Paramatma and Brahman. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14:27, Brahmanohi Pratistaham. The absolute truth begins not with the impersonal Brahman, but with the original personality of Godhead, Krishna. When Arjuna realized Krishna's greatness, he addressed him in this way. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan, Purusham Sasratam Divyam, Adidevam Ajam Vibhum. You are the Supreme Brahman, the ultimate, the supreme abode and purifier, the absolute truth and the eternal divine person. You are the primal God, transcendental and original, and you are unborn, the unborn and all-pervading beauty. Bhagavad Gita 10:12. Now here's a prayer we should say every day. Obviously, someone of Arjuna's, surrender to the Lord can recite such a wonderful prayer. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan, Kurusham Sasvatam Divyam, Adidevam Ajam Vibhum. That's the Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter, 12th verse. The Brahma Samhita also says, Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. The Supreme Lord is not caused by anything. In other words, Anadi. But he is the cause of all causes. That's greater than being a cause. The Vedanta Sutra says, Janma dasya yata. The absolute truth is that from which everything emanates. The absolute truth is described as Adi Purusha. The absolute truth is therefore a person and is not impersonal. Well, that eliminates all the scriptures of the Mayavadis. Text number 8, and we'll end with this. The Supreme Personality God said, My dear sons of the King, I am very much pleased by the friendly relationships among you. All of you are engaged in one occupation, devotional service. I am so pleased with your mutual friendship that I wish you all good fortune. Now, you may ask a benediction from me. Okay, so this is a hint, a big hint. If devotees live peacefully together with friendly relationships and engaged in one occupation, devotional service, Krishna is so pleased with their mutual friendship that he will wish all good fortune for such devotees. And he'll say, now you may ask a benediction from me. Purport, since the sons of King Prasanabharisat were all united in Krishna consciousness, the Lord was very pleased with them. Each and every one of the sons of King Prasanabharisat was an individual soul, but they were united in offering transcendental service to the Lord. Now that's a real temple. Everyone united, offering transcendental service to the Lord. The unity of the individual souls attempting to satisfy the Supreme Lord is rendering service to the Lord, or rendering service to the Lord is real unity. So everyone should be engaged one way or another in the devotional service of the Lord. In the material world, such unity is not possible, even though people may officially unite. They all have different interests. In the United Nations, for instance, all the nations have their particular national ambitions, and consequently, they cannot be united. Then why do they call it the United Nations? If they cannot be united, and they're not united. Consequently, they cannot be united. This unity between individual souls is so strong within this material world that even a society of Krishna consciousness members sometimes appear disunited due to their having different opinions and leaning toward material things, meaning they're corrupted by material things or attachment to material things. Actually, in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be two opinions. Whoa, that's a big statement. There cannot be two opinions. There is only one great goal: to serve Krishna to one's best ability. That's a wonderful statement. If there is some disagreement over service, such disagreement is to be taken as spiritual. Wow. Those who are actually engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be disunited in any circumstance, This makes the Supreme Personality of Godhead very happy and willing to award all kinds of benediction to his devotees. As indicated in this verse, we can see that the Lord is immediately prepared to award all benedictions to the sons of King Prasanabharisat. Now, I'm very happy to read this purport because many times I am asked by devotees that so and so is not giving me service. He promised me, but I've been waiting now 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to get the service. And they're very upset because of that. And they come and open their heart to me, and sometimes crying, and they're angry also. That why is it that so and so has not given me service? It's not now, 6 years I've been waiting, something like that. Well, I can only say, but look, do you have any service? And they say, yeah, well, I'm able to do this, I'm able to do that. I said, well, that's service, isn't it? And they said, but no, I want to do this type of service. So this is a very, very difficult thing to deal with. And people get really upset because they want to be able to serve the deities, and they're not able to do it right away, and so forth. My only suggestion to such people is just be patient. Everything will come to the right position if you're patient. But if you're not patient and you become adamant, you're going to end up arguing, and it's going to become a poisonous situation. So it says here, and Prabhupada says clearly, this unity between individual souls is so strong within this material world that even in a society of Krishna consciousness, members sometimes appear disunited due to their having different opinions and leaning toward material things. Actually, in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be, so actually in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be two opinions. There is only one goal, to serve Krishna. Well, yeah, even someone that tells me, well, look, so-and-so promised me to give me service to, let's say, serve the deities, but now I've been waiting for 2 years or 3 years. But in the meantime, are they engaged in devotional service? Yes. Maybe not what kind of service they want to be engaged in, but they are engaged in devotional service. Therefore, Krishna said, and Prabhupada says here, there is only one goal. Actually, in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be two opinions. There is only one goal, to serve Krishna to one's best ability. If there is some disagreement over service, such disagreement is to be taken as spiritual. Why? Because you're talking about devotional service, right? So as long as someone's engaged in devotional service, it might not be the type of service they want, but it is still devotional service to the Lord. So there should not be disagreement or arguing. Those who are actually engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be disunited in any circumstance. This makes the Supreme Personality of Godhead very happy and willing to award all kinds of benediction to his devotees. As indicated in this verse, we can see that the Lord is immediately prepared to award all benedictions to the sons of King Prasanna Bodhisattva. So, therefore, my dear devotees, you should read this purport, Canto 4, Chapter 30, Text 8. Whatever service you have been given, never give it up. And whatever service you're desiring to have, it will happen, but it might take a long time. So, but what is important is you do have service. That is a great benediction, right? So if your service is to take the trash out every morning, and throw it out, there's nothing wrong with that because you're serving Krishna, right? You shouldn't think, well, I don't want to do that. I want to do something else. Well, you will, but it'll take some time. But you should be satisfied with the service you have and do it at the best with the best of your ability. Never give up service. Never give up devotional service. That would be a big mistake. And that's why Prabhupada says disunity between individual souls is so strong within the material world that even in the society of Krishna consciousness, members sometimes appear disunited due to their having different opinions and leaning toward material things. Actually, in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be two opinions. There is only one goal, to serve Krishna to one's best ability. So you can serve Krishna as a pujari, you can serve Krishna as a book distributor, you can serve Krishna as a cook, you can serve Krishna in hundreds and thousands of different ways. And you're serving Krishna. You know, there's not only one way of serving. And if you want to change your service, but it's not happening right away, you just have to be patient, that's all. And continue with the service that you have. Never give up any service. That's the main point. And that's what he's saying here. He says, there is only one goal, to serve Krishna to one's best ability. If there is some disagreement over service, such disagreement is to be taken as spiritual. Those who are actually engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be disunited in any circumstance. This makes the Supreme Personality of Godhead very happy. In other words, the devotees, even if they're not satisfied by the service they have, they continue the service they have because it's service for Krishna. And Krishna is pleased. And he says here, actually in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be two opinions. There is only one goal, to serve Krishna to one's best ability. If there is some disagreement over service, such disagreement is to be taken as spiritual. Those who are actually, okay, what does that mean exactly? It should be taken as spiritual. Well, because it's not like arguments between non-devotees. Those arguments are not spiritual. But when there are in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be two opinions. There's only one goal, to serve Krishna to one's best abilities. So if your service is to take the trash out every day, you should be happy. That's service to Krishna. And you should do it without arguing. If there is some disagreement over service, such disagreement is to be taken as spiritual. That means you want service and somebody else wants service, so you both want service. That is spiritual. Now, what kind of service you're going to have, that's when there might be an argument, but that argument would not be valid because you still have service. That's the whole point. You know, when someone comes and argues with me, look, so-and-so has not given me the service that I want. I said, but has he given you service? They said, yes. I said, then why don't you become satisfied with what service you have? No, but I want to do this other service. Well, I said, well, has this person told you that you'll be able to do it? Well, he says yes, but he never gives me the service. I said, well, you just have to be patient then. But the person has service. So these are all kinds of issues that come up. But if we read and come to class and listen to the purports of Srila Prabhupada, all these questions are answered. That's why Prabhupada says, this unity between individual souls is so strong within the material world that even in a society of Krishna consciousness, members sometimes appear disunited due to their having different opinions and leaning toward material things. Actually, in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be two opinions. There is only one goal, to serve Krishna to one's best ability. That is our takeaway today. If there is some disagreement over service, such disagreement is to be taken as spiritual. Yeah, because there's disagreement, but it's based on serving the Lord. So what is not permitted, or what is not, let's say, good, is to leave your service and give up devotional service. That would be a very, let's say, a very stupid thing to do. As long as you have Krishna conscious service, you should hold on to it, even if it's only taking the trash out every day. You should hold on to it because it's service to Krishna, which is transcendental. If you give it up saying that, oh, it's just a mundane activity, it means you don't understand Krishna consciousness. Even taking out the trash that was in the temple, you are serving Krishna just as much as someone who's a pujari and is taking care of the deities. See? Because all these services are services for Krishna. Not everybody understands that, unfortunately. That's why Prabhupada says, in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be two opinions. There is only one goal, to serve Krishna to one's best ability. If there is some disagreement over service, such disagreement is to be taken as spiritual. Those who are actually engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be disunited in any circumstance. This makes the Supreme Personality of Godhead very happy and willing to award all kinds of benediction to his devotees, as indicated in this verse. We can see that the Lord is immediately prepared to award all benedictions to the sons of King Parsanabharisat. That means that we should not become upset or angry. Whatever service we have, we should be very satisfied and continue to do it. And all your desires will be satisfied in the long term. In the short term, you might think, oh, I don't like this, I don't want to do this. That's a mistake. Whatever service is given to you by the devotees, you should take to it right away, hold on to it, never give it up. And that will be your platform on which you'll get all kinds of other services. But if you destroy your platform, then you don't get anything. So the platform is whatever the devotees are willing to give you service, you should hold on to it, never let go of it. Why? Because there is only one goal, that is to serve Krishna to one's death. So that is the answer to people who are not satisfied with the service that they have. But there's only one goal, that is to serve Krishna to one's best ability. If there is some disagreement over service, such disagreement is to be taken as spiritual. That means that you don't give up the service. That means that you are spiritual. Even if you think, oh, I don't like this service, I want to do something else. But if you have service, giving it up is a big mistake. Whatever the service is, you should hold on to it. And that's your platform to make further spiritual advancement. Giving up service means you crush or you throw away the platform, and therefore you are in la-la land, as they say. La-la land means there's no basis. So you have to build the basis. The basis is service. Now, it doesn't matter whatever service you're going to do for Krishna. That is the base on which you make further devotional advancement. But if you voluntarily give up service, thinking, I don't like this service, I've been waiting so long to get the service I like, I didn't get it, now I give up. That's a major mistake. And we should not make that mistake. That means we have to have patience and tolerance and be satisfied with whatever service we have for Krishna. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. This is let's say, an issue that is debated a lot, but actually there's no reason to debate it. Whatever service you have, you should be satisfied with it. And that is your baseline for further advancement in Krishna conscious service for the Lord. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Are there any questions, comments?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Haribol.
Nitya Harivilas. Guru Maharaj, question. I have noticed that people, devotees aspire for deity worship because they are aspiring for Brahman initiation. And so, is that the root cause, Guru Maharaj? They look for deity worship, or should devotees aspire for it? I think based on this today's conversation, it's clear that we should be seeing every service equally, whether aspiring for a Brahman initiation or whether you are taking the trash out, it should be regarded as same. Is this the right understanding, Guru Maharaj?
Yes, because the devotee is doing service. So whether it's taking the trash out, whether it's worshiping the deity, it is service to the Lord. So we should be thankful that we have service, and we should hold on to it with all our, energy. And if you are patient and not argumentative and holding on to whatever service you have, that is your baseline. And you will see that as time goes on, as long as you're patient, all your desires will be satisfied. All your desires for service will be satisfied. It might take some time, but you're on a platform. But if you crush the platform and insist, I want this right now, you lose everything.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. And even if some service taken away from you, also we should be patient. We should respect that also. If some service is taken away from you because you have been doing for a long time, and then you are getting another service which you may not favor it, but you should, as a devotee, we should treat every service equal. Even if you are taken from one service and given another service, we should treat equally.
Well, the question is, do you have service? So if you're asked to give up one service to take up another service, you're still engaged in service, right? So, and every service we are given, whether you like it or not, you should do it with the best of your ability. And then you have a baseline from which you can make more further devotional advancement. If you break the baseline by dissatisfaction, you lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what if we are overloaded with many services, Guru Maharaj, and then at the time we have to prioritize, and it may upset some devotees?
Well, let's hope that devotees are merciful to devotees. And if there is an overload on one devotee, another devotee will help that person. There should not be, I am the only one that counts. No. Helping another devotee do all their service, or in all their services, or to some extent, is also devotional service. So the whole idea is to always be engaged in devotional service, whether it's devotional services given to you by the temple management or devotional service that you're asked to help another person in the service of the temple. You're still engaged in devotional service, and that's the best thing. Now, if you say, but it's not the type of service I like, well, that's not a good example. We should like any service, as long as it's meant for the deity. Yeah. Haribo.
But then when there is an overload, there is a need for communication. Right?
Yeah, of course. And that's an opening for the other devotees that want to have more service.
Mhm.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes,
This is Adidev Das.
yes, yes.
Maharaj, one follow-up question on the same topic. So sometimes devotees are engaged in service, like same service as a group, and one devotee wants to do in his way, and another devotee wants to do in his way. It's the same service, but can be done in different ways. So, and then if there is a disagreement, so that is material disagreement, or like how to understand that? Because the purport says, actually in Krishna consciousness there cannot be two opinions.
Well, that's why we have temple. One second. That's why we have temple managers. They have the last say when there's what you would say controversial opinions, and we have to accept what they say. They're the temple managers. They're the ones that have to keep everything going smoothly in the temple. So we have to accept the opinion of the temple managers and have faith that they will satisfy our desires, but maybe not immediately. Our desires for service, that is. So it means that a genuine devotee will always be patient and be satisfied with whatever service he has, do it in the best way possible, and have faith that if he's actually serving Krishna with love and devotion, Krishna will always protect him. And obviously, Krishna will help him make spiritual advancement. But there's many ways of making spiritual advancement. There's not like one way. That's the beauty of Krishna consciousness. Even if your service is taking the trash out, that's Krishna's trash. And therefore, you're doing a great service. Otherwise, the temple would be full of trash. So you're engaged in devotional service, even with trash, taking trash out. So any service is seen by Krishna. And when that service is done in a regulated way and happily and not given up, Krishna is very satisfied. We shouldn't be like a little kid and throw a tantrum and say, I want to do this. I don't like to do what you're saying. Oh, that's nonsense. We should learn to be very versatile and do whatever is necessary for Krishna consciousness to go forward in this world. Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, my dear devotees. Please chant Hare Krishna and be
Happy.
happy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Bol. Yeah, Hare Bol, Mata. Hare Krishna. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy, Mata. That's my opinion today. Yes. 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 Well, my motto is every day the same way. Chanting Hare
Communicate and
Krishna.
update your tickets as to